So I started looking at a particular piece of meat, and I started thinking, okay, how can I take something that you can get on the market for $4 to $5 a pound?
That's what it is, yeah.
And turn it into something that tastes like it ought to be $20 a pound. I know how to do that.
I know you do.
And I'll tell you what we're going to do. This is a top sirloin roast. So the thing that happens a lot when you overcook a roast or you cook it at too high a temperature for too long, it becomes tough.
Right.
If you slow cook this and let that, and have it room temperature to start out with, that's in the beginning, that's something you have to do. And you put the right flavors on here and cook it about 325 until it gets that internal temperature that we like, which is roughly 130.
Pretty rare.
135, pretty rare. You can make that taste like prime rib.
That sounds good to me.
Now, it's not going to be the same consistency, but now we got a little bit of an unfair advantage because that's Mo, and we raised our calf to be almost 700 pounds instead of 1,200 pounds. Now, that's something I will do again. Now, frankly, a lot of people say, oh, he's talking about his cow. Yes, we are. That's a cow. No apologies for that.
Best meat we've ever had.
That's the way we're going to do it from here on out. What does it take when you're sitting in a restaurant and you're having prime rib? If you like prime rib, there's something years ago that jumped out at me because Raul said, here, smell this, smell this, smell this. I'm like, that's different. What do you taste in your prime rib? What's the first thing you taste when you taste it?
Salt, pepper, and garlic.
Salt, pepper, and garlic. And that's the first thing that jumps out. But then there's the more subtle thing that comes out that I found over time is rosemary and thyme, especially the thyme. All right, so I've got my skillet heating up. If you'll give me some olive oil, let's go ahead and get us a hot skillet. And this is going to be just quick and easy. We're going to warm this up because we're going to brown this. Now that's going to start the cooking process. That's going to get everything real warm on the outside. That's not a real thick piece of meat. So if you do not have a meat thermometer in your kitchen, is that not something really wonderful to have?
Yeah.
To let you know how things are coming along? Now I don't want some big old pieces of honking rosemary. So if you will, go ahead and strip the leaves off just like you'd take them off normally. And then we're going to cut that up real fine. And the same with our thyme. If you'll take some of this thyme, look, I got all kinds of thyme on my hands. Now that I'm semi-retired. Now, what I always do is keep salt, pepper, and garlic around. And usually with this mixture, I'll go a little heavy on the salt. And that depends on what your doctor's orders are. I'm going to go fairly heavy on this seasoning. And if you wanted to, you could do this an hour ahead of time, let it set, let it really sink in. I've got some extra fresh ground pepper right here, some big stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and put that on the outside because that's fresh. All right, so this is the fat side coming up. Now, if you remember our show that we did not too long ago, that's very shortly gonna be pushing 1 million views. I think we're up in the mid 800,000 views on how to butcher a cow. If you remember that, then you're gonna remember where the sirloin tip roast came from. This is a good cut of meat. Look at all that fat.
Yeah.
Does that bother me that it's got all kinds of fat on it?
No.
What does that do? That imparts that flavor. And what it's also going to do is when we brown this at a high temperature, it's going to have a little runoff, and we're going to use that. We're going to put that back in our au jus, which is going to be bottom. Now, not too long ago, we did a standing rib roast. This is about the same thing, but we're taking a $4.50 pound
piece of meat
per pound,
and
turn it into something special. All right, our oil is hot. I'm going to start on the fat side down.
Yum.
And I'm going to let that go for a minute. All right, because we can, I'm going to put some of this large ground pepper on here because that just adds so much flavor. That's that crust a lot of times that you taste. And we're going to take it a step further in a little while. I'd say we're about there.
Wow.
Look at that. Now, whatever comes off of this, we're not wasting. We're going to put in this pan right here that we're going to cook it in. Now, we do have our oven preheating to 325, or we could just eat it right out of the skillet.
I could eat that like that.
I know you could. I'm going to let that go brown on the other side, and I'm going to turn it on the side real quick, and I'm going to seal all that moisture in as best I can. So this is almost exactly 5 pounds. Now, we're going to have company tonight. Nick, Victoria's out. Kelly's always here to help us eat. And we're going to have enough for everybody. This is 5 pounds, okay?
And we've had volunteers to help us eat.
Yeah, we've never seen any problems. We don't have a lot of leftovers.
No.
And if there is,
Wow.
Look at that.
Yum.
Now listen, I don't want this to go too long. Because like I said, that's already cooking.
We could eat it.
And I want that inside to be rare. Now we're going to do one more thing. You mind if I use your cutting board there?
Go ahead.
I'm going to smack this right up over the top of here. Now what are we going to do? There's one last step. I'm going to cook it fat side up, as usual.
Okay.
Now you've got me some thyme and rosemary chopped up, smaller pieces. I'm going to take a cup of beef broth. Now I'll tell you what, pour me a glass of red wine.
Okay. 1 cup?
And
Or how much
yes,
is it?
this is, I don't know if it's a Pinot Noir or a Cabernet, it doesn't matter. Any kind of nice red wine. This is going to be our fancy schmancy, wonderful
Au jus.
tasting au jus. I tell you what, let's do. Just to make sure, at that temperature, I don't think that's all going to go, but I want to make sure we got plenty of stuff. Let's get a little bit more beef broth and put in there.
Okay.
Let's go 2 cups on that. I'm going to take a little more salt, pepper, and garlic.
Yum.
Season that. All right, so we've got adequate liquid in there. I'm going to take what came off of here. We'll use this
Yum.
Lodge pan again
Yeah.
later because we got more to cook. Okay, last and final step. Pardon me, Mrs. Farmer, but do you have any Grey Poupon?
Yes, I do. What's the thing you're supposed? What do they always say when?
But of course.
But of course, that's right. But of course.
And we did this
But of
not
course.
too long ago,
That's
so
right.
we still have some left. I'm going to take my Grey Poupon. In fact,
Yeah.
I tell you what, I'm going to keep adding it. You keep spreading it until we
spread it on
figure
there.
we got enough. That's going to add an extra
Yum. Oh, yum.
delight. But then it also provides me a surface for this to stick. You see what I'm saying?
I like where you're going
You
with
know what I'm
this.
talking about? Mrs. Farmer, if you will flip that over for me.
Already?
Is that not beautiful? Look at that.
That is.
Just look at that.
Wow.
You know where we're going?
I do.
Same deal, if you don't mind spreading that out for me.
Wow. That looks pretty.
Now look at that. Is that
I
not
like it.
beautiful? What
It is
about just a little bit
beautiful.
more crystal?
I think pepper's wonderful.
All right, if you don't mind, if you can plant that in here. Oven's preheated to 325. I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna check that in an hour
Okay.
with a meat thermometer just to see where it's at. Look at that.
I'm excited.
Just, you know, when it looks good too, I mean, it just makes
It already
me
looks
excited.
good, yeah.
All right, let's pop that in. Oh, we got to get that out of the oven.
Okay.
And then we're going to let it set with covered for about 15, 20 minutes. We're going to cover this and let it set about 15, maybe 20 minutes because those juices are still flowing in there and it's going to maintain that heat in there.
All right.
All right, would you do me a favor, Mrs. Farmer? Look at that beautiful piece of meat right there.
love it.
That's a roast that we turned into more like a steak type thing. Pour me some juice in here. We're going to see where we're at taste-wise on that.
Do you want all this?
Yeah, we got
quite a few
company
people.
today. So let's do it all. Everybody can have their own little bucket of au jus. Now here's where we come in and we say, okay, let's see, where do we start?
How is it?
It's already really good. But what we're gonna do to finish it up, so I'm gonna take a little bit of this. It's called Better Than Bouillon. You've seen me use this before. And you're gonna see us on occasion repeating some stuff or doing maybe just a little bit different every now and then. But we're gonna put a little bit of that in there, just for the salt. That in itself, that au jus right there is about ready to go. If you didn't want to do anything else, you could stop right there. But we're gonna take, and because it's room temperature, we're gonna take
Yeah.
some, I like a little bit of sweet in there. I don't like it all salty.
Yeah.
So what I'm gonna do, we could add a little more bouillon if we wanted. We could crush some of that. Let's do say one of these. I've already got it where it needs to be, so
Okay.
let's just take one bouillon cube. And to get it to cook in there quicker, we just bust it up a bit. That gives it that nice, rich flavor. I'm gonna put just a tiny bit of red wine in here.
Yeah.
And then we're going to crank this up and reduce it down just a hair, just to let that sweet get in there. Let's start right about here and see what. Let's
Right in the
just
middle?
slice and see what it looks like in the middle. Because I was reading, I let it sit there a little longer than I meant to.
Oh, wow.
My!
Oh my goodness.
Now look at that. Turn around to the camera.
Goodness gracious.
Look at that. Now, does that not look
That
like
looks delicious.
a piece of prime rib? Oh, ho, ho, ho.